Okay, so we went to File and New and Reload Startup File. And we're going to start making this sword now. So first we're going to start with the base or the handle area. And then we're going to work our way up to the hilt, which is the connection part between the handle and the blade. And then we'll work up to the blade. So first things first, we'll switch to edit mode here. And we'll switch to face mode. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on this depth buffer. I call it the X-ray button. Let's go ahead and turn that on right away so we can see through our object. That way when you go to select everything, you can be sure that it's going to select the other side. If I had that off and I did a select all, look what happens. It looks like I got everything, but it didn't actually select this side, right? So just keep in mind you're going to probably want that on. Well, really depends. A lot of times I have it on, but there are times where I don't want to select those backside, right? So okay, so let's go ahead and do that, and let's actually select them all and scale them over to make this object a little bit taller, but skinnier in the other sides, right? All right, and let's select this top face right here, and let's go ahead and extrude that up. So you can go extrude individual. If you know the hotkeys, you can do that. I set my Blender on to use the Maya interface, and if you do that, which is what we do at Game U, you can actually, instead of doing extrude individual here, you can press Option X, and that actually will extrude as well. And if you're doing it a lot, it helps to get used to the hotkeys. It'll just make you that much faster. Okay, so this time we're going to actually select the two sides right here, these two sides, and we're going to do an extrude individual again. So you could actually do Option X for that as well. And the one thing to talk about is if you do Option X, if you do the shortcut, it won't automatically scale out right away. Whereas if you do extrude individual here, you get the option to drag and move them out right away. So just keep that in mind. So again, if you use the menu, you're going to be able to drag it out right away. If you use the hotkeys, you won't. But just to show you that, if I use the hotkeys, I don't get to drag it out the same way. It kind of does more of like a camera view, which is okay. But really, if you just right-click right away, it's going to place it right there. And this is good to know as well. If you ever see something like this, where you have these dots, which denote faces, right here along the edges, what that means is that you have extruded a face, but have not moved it away from the original face. So it is basically collapsed upon itself. So let's take a look at this real quick. If I was to select one of these and now move it, you see how it's showing this face? It's showing it in there. It's trying to keep this at the center, but when it's right on top of the other one, all it can really do is just display it right there. So if you ever see a face like that with all of these points there, now you know what's going on. You have basically a face on top of another one. All right. So what we can do though is we can go back here where we have both of these selected, and if you ever run into a situation like this, just simply switch to scale mode and start to scale them out, and they both will scale out their respective ways. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to take this one and actually I'll tell you what, before we scale that out too far, let's just scale it out a little bit because we want kind of a connection like we did with our wings last week. We want this to connect back nicely when we smooth it. So let's do one more extrude individual and bring these out a little bit further. And now let's do another one. Let's go extrude individual, and we're going to actually move these up a little bit, right? And let's take this one and actually rotate it a bit. And we'll do this side for right now. We'll do the same thing. Let's rotate both of those, all right? And let's take these and finish them off with one more extrude out. Okay, you can probably start to see what's going on here already. We've got the beginnings of the hilt of our sword. Okay, so now we'll take this, and actually before we start, now's a good time to save this. So let's go ahead and go up to File and Save As, and we will save it to our desktop. It's probably the easiest way in the beginning. We'll call this Sword and save as Blender file. Always a good idea to save often because these programs sometimes will crash and you don't want to lose all your cool work, although that's good practice. Okay, so now we're ready to start in the blade part. So we're going to select this top part here, and this is where it will connect. And let's actually extrude this as well. So remember, Option X, I can extrude it and start to pull that. Okay, let's give ourselves a little bit of a connector part right here, maybe something like that. I'll bring that down a little bit. And then another extrusion. Well, let's bring that one in as well. We want this blade to essentially get pretty narrow, right? And then finally, let's do another one. Now this time, let's bring it out pretty far. This is our blade. Now this blade is actually, if you look at a lot of swords, it's going to flare out up there, right? So we'll flare our blade out like that, and then we'll extrude it again. Now let's bring this one back in. Whoops, let's bring it back in. We'll give it kind of a point, something like that. Okay, well, remember, we can always adjust this, so we're not trying to get it perfect, we're just trying to be able to see what it's going to look like. We may want to take this one and actually scale it down as well, so it gives it a bit more of a blade. Okay, I think it's actually time now to put on our subdivision surface modifier and see how this looks. So let's go ahead and do that.